Catherine Bennett remembered the day she left as if it had happened yesterday. The sky was a disinterested gray, the air thick with unsaid words. She had 2 suitcases, a half-written apology on the tip of her tongue, and a little boy clinging to her coat like he'd never let go. Behind her, through the glass of the kitchen window, stood her daughter, 16 years old, too still, too quiet. That was the day Catherine walked out of her marriage. And, without realizing it, the day she began walking away from Sophia. The divorce had not been a dramatic eruption but a slow erosion. Years of silence, neglect, and unmet expectations that had worn down her and her husband like riverstone. Catherine hadn't planned to leave her children in the emotional fallout, but she had believed, naively, foolishly, that Sophia would understand. Because Sophia had always understood. Even as a little girl, Sophia had been composed. Not cold, just practical. She knew how to pack her own lunch, help with Caleb's homework, and read the mood in a room better than most adults. Sophia had a backbone made of quiet steel. Caleb, on the other hand, was all soft edges. Sensitive. Prone to tears. He needed bedtime stories and gentle reminders. Catherine often told herself that Sophia had been born to lead, and Caleb, to be led. So when Catherine married again and moved into her new life, she made a choice. A mother's triage. Caleb needed her more. Sophia would manage. Years passed. Sophia did more than manage, she excelled. She became a top student, a steady sister, and eventually a financial advisor with a reputation for razor-sharp strategy and unwavering discipline. She was, by all external markers, a success. But Catherine didn't see her much. There were the obligatory holiday dinners. Some birthdays. A few texts with clipped emojis. But always there was distance. And Catherine chalked it up to personality. That's just who Sophia is, she'd say at book club. She's tough. Doesn't need coddling. What she never stopped to ask was this. Had Sophia stopped needing, or had she just stopped asking? When Caleb announced his engagement to Amelia Harrington, the daughter of a powerful real estate mogul, Catherine's heart swelled with vindication. Finally, her son was getting the kind of life she'd dreamed of for him. Polished, protected, and prestigious. She watched with pride as the Harringtons took over wedding planning. She didn't question it when Sophia wasn't included in the bridal party. When Sophia offered to help financially, Catherine smiled and said, "Of course, darling. That's generous of you." Because Sophia was generous. Sophia always handled things. So when Sophia showed up at the wedding and was handed a paper plate, when she stood awkwardly on the outskirts while lesser-known cousins toasted beside the groom, Catherine told herself, she's fine. She doesn't need attention. She's here for Caleb. But later, when Sophia disappeared mid-reception, without a scene, without a word, Catherine felt something dark curl in her chest. A whisper of something she'd ignored for years. You've mistaken strength for immunity. A week later, when the wedding debts began to mount and Caleb confessed to financial trouble, Catherine didn't hesitate. She went to Sophia. Not to apologize. Not to ask how she was. But to ask for more money. She'd expected resistance. Maybe a sigh or a lecture. She hadn't expected the no. Not a tearful, trembling no. A clean, practiced one. Like a door quietly clicking shut. "No, Mom," Sophia said, her voice calm but final. "I'm not doing this anymore." Catherine stared at her daughter, suddenly seeing a woman she no longer recognized. Sophia wasn't angry. She was free. And Catherine, for the first time in decades, felt what it was like to be the one left behind. That night, Catherine sat alone in her living room, the echo of that no reverberating through her bones. It wasn't rejection, it was revelation. It was a mirror she didn't want to look into, but couldn't ignore. She pulled out an old photo album, the kind she hadn't touched in years. One by one, she traced Sophia's face across birthdays, school plays, graduation ceremonies. Always smiling, always present, but always standing slightly to the side. She had never noticed it before. Sophia was always just outside the frame. There was a memory that rose up like smoke. Caleb was 8. He had broken his arm at a trampoline park. Catherine had rushed to the ER in tears. But when she got there, Sophia was already seated next to Caleb's bed, holding his uninjured hand, whispering stories. Catherine remembered thinking, thank God for Sophia. And she had leaned on that ever since. Sophia would step in. Sophia would understand. Sophia would handle it. What she hadn't realized was that Sophia wasn't stepping in out of duty, she was stepping in because no one else did. Because someone had to. And eventually, Sophia had stepped out. In that stillness, Catherine felt something new. Not guilt, exactly. But grief. Not just for what she'd done, but for what she'd missed. The birthdays she hadn't asked about. The wins she hadn't celebrated. The sacrifices she'd expected, demanded, assumed. She had always told herself that loving Caleb more openly didn't mean she loved Sophia less. But now, she saw the truth. She hadn't made space for Sophia's hurt, because she had confused silence with strength. And in doing so, she had hurt the daughter who had asked for the least and given the most. Now, as the rain tapped gently against her window, Catherine picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over Sophia's name. She didn't know what to say. How do you apologize to someone you thought didn't need apologizing to? She typed. I see now how much I asked of you. I didn't mean to ignore your pain. I just thought you didn't have any. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. She hit send. She didn't expect a reply. But for the first time, Catherine Bennett wasn't reaching out to ask for help. She was reaching out because she finally saw her daughter, not as a support beam, but as a human being. And that was the beginning of something new. Catherine Bennett would later realize that the moment her son Caleb announced his engagement wasn't just the happiest day of his life, it was the beginning of the fracture she had refused to see for years. Amelia Harrington was poised, polished, and picture-perfect. Her family moved in a different orbit: country clubs, curated social media lives, destination birthdays, and wine tastings hosted by sommeliers flown in from France. Catherine, a retired nurse from Portland, felt small in comparison. But when Amelia smiled and kissed her cheek at the family brunch, Catherine told herself that things were changing. This is it, she whispered to her best friend later that night. This is Caleb's chance. His real beginning. When Caleb asked Sophia to help him with the wedding budget, Catherine didn't blink. Of course Sophia would help. Sophia always helped. She remembered how, years ago, Sophia had paid Caleb's community college tuition behind the scenes, just so he wouldn't fall behind. When he wanted to join a professional association with a $2,000 yearly fee, Sophia had quietly sent the check and said it was a career investment. Catherine had praised her daughter's generosity, never pausing to question whether it was chosen or expected. Now, the Harrington wedding loomed, and with it, an avalanche of costs: floral designers, ice sculptures, signature cocktails, engraved invitations printed on imported linen stock. It's tradition, Amelia had said at dinner one evening, scrolling through Pinterest on her phone. The groom's side handles the welcome dinner and rehearsal party. You understand, right? Catherine had nodded, a little embarrassed. Of course. Caleb, eyes lowered, added, Sophia said she'd handle it. And that was that. No one asked if Sophia had offered, or if she'd just been assigned. When Catherine called Sophia later that night, she made it sound like a favor. Sweetheart, it would mean so much to your brother. You know how these things go. There was a pause on the line. I know, Sophia said softly. I'll take care of it. And in that quiet moment, Catherine didn't hear resignation. She heard reliability. She didn't ask how much. She didn't ask how Sophia felt. She just said, You're such a blessing to this family, darling. Honestly, I don't know what we'd do without you. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of appointments, fittings, and meetings that Catherine was sometimes included in, but Sophia, increasingly, was not. At first, Sophia had been part of the planning group chat. She'd even drafted a spreadsheet with budget tiers and deposit deadlines. But then, her messages started getting left on read. Suggestions ignored. Questions dodged. She showed up to a planning brunch once and was met with frosty smiles. You're not really part of the bridal party, Amelia had said gently but firmly, so don't worry about all this. Just show up and enjoy, okay? Catherine had been at that brunch. She remembered the way Sophia's eyes flickered, the way her mouth twitched as if she had something to say but swallowed it whole. Instead, Sophia simply nodded. Sure. Later that day, when Catherine and Amelia were alone, Catherine laughed and said, Sophia can be a bit intense, huh? Always taking things seriously. Amelia smiled, dismissive. She gives big sister energy, for sure. But we've got it covered. Catherine didn't defend her daughter. She changed the subject. 1 week before the wedding, Sophia received her invitation in the mail. No phone call. No handwritten note. Just a flat envelope. Inside, a generic card printed with, You are warmly invited to celebrate the union of Caleb and Amelia. No mention of her name. No family role. No thanks for her contributions. Just an RSVP link. That night, Catherine's phone rang. It was Sophia. There was a tremble in her voice, so subtle most wouldn't catch it, but Catherine, for once, did. I got the invite. Oh, good. Catherine said. Isn't it beautiful? I'm not in the family section. Not a speech. Not even a table with Dad and you. There was silence. Then Sophia added, Did you know? Catherine hesitated. Amelia's family is very particular. I didn't want to rock the boat. And besides, Caleb said it was fine. It's not fine, Sophia said, her voice tightening. But it's okay. I won't make a scene. I just wanted you to know I noticed. Before Catherine could respond, the line went dead. For the next few days, Catherine busied herself with floral counts and seating charts. But something gnawed at her. She replayed old scenes like static in her mind. Sophia carrying Caleb on her back in the rain when his bike broke, Sophia missing her senior prom to babysit, Sophia quietly picking up the check for Thanksgiving dinner when Catherine's card declined. Had she thanked her daughter? Ever? Or had she simply believed Sophia would always handle it? The day before the wedding, Catherine stopped by Caleb's apartment. He was nervous, jittery, pacing. She's only transferring $8,200? He asked, scrolling through his Venmo app. I thought she'd cover both parties. The planner's invoice is more than that. Catherine felt a twist in her chest. Did you ask her? Caleb looked up. Why would I need to? She always helps. And in that moment, Catherine saw it, not just in Caleb, but in herself. The entitlement. The blindness. They had built a house of gratitude with no doors, no exits for Sophia. Just assumptions. That she was strong enough. That she didn't need acknowledgement. That her love was infinite. But even oceans run dry. Catherine called Sophia that night, hoping to apologize, but the call went straight to voicemail. She didn't try again. Instead, she sat in her car, staring at the dashboard, remembering a girl with scraped knees and quiet eyes who had never once asked for the bigger slice, the front seat, or the last word. And she whispered into the silence, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I see it now. You were always more than we ever deserved. The wedding was held at an expansive vineyard estate tucked into the rolling hills of Oregon wine country. Rows of white chairs lined the lawn in perfect symmetry, and the floral arrangements cost more than Catherine's first car. A string quartet played as guests filtered in, their heels clicking over marble walkways and polished stone. Catherine arrived early, dressed in a pale blue gown Amelia had selected for her. She looked elegant, serene even, like a woman watching her life finally culminate in something she could be proud of. Her son, Caleb, was marrying into a world she never could have imagined for him, and for that, she was quietly grateful. She spotted Sophia near the guest check-in table. Alone. Sophia wore a tailored navy dress with a high collar and pearl earrings that had belonged to Catherine's mother. She looked composed, almost regal, but there was something unreadable in her expression. Her eyes scanned the rows of labeled place cards. Her name wasn't there. Catherine took a step forward to speak, to explain maybe, but she stopped herself. Don't start drama today, she told herself. It's Caleb's moment. Let things be smooth. So she watched instead. And that was the first mistake. Sophia was eventually directed, by a 19-year-old catering assistant, to a small side table near the back of the outdoor dining area. It wasn't in the family section. In fact, it wasn't in any section. There were no linens. No centerpiece. just a flimsy folding chair under a drooping tent flap. And when the food was finally served, Sophia wasn't brought a plated meal. She was handed a paper plate. Catherine saw it. She saw the way Sophia paused, blinked slowly, and quietly accepted it. She sat down, alone, the cheap plate trembling slightly in her hands. Then came the second blow. Walter Harrington, the father of the bride, was making the rounds. Polished, graying at the temples, the man exuded effortless wealth and command. When he reached Sophia's table, he didn't shake her hand. He didn't even greet her. Instead, he chuckled and said loud enough for 3 surrounding tables to hear, "Well, looks like the real family's inside. The rest can enjoy the view from here." And then he walked away. Catherine's mouth went dry. She watched it unfold, watched Sophia take a deep breath and set the plate down. Sophia didn't react. She didn't cause a scene. She didn't look around for allies. She simply stood, smoothed her dress, and walked away from the table. She didn't look at Catherine. And Catherine didn't follow her. Because she was afraid. Not afraid of Sophia. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of ruining the illusion of perfection the wedding had promised. So she turned back toward the main tent and took her seat beside Caleb's new in-laws, who were already toasting to a future of elegance and unity. But Catherine couldn't hear the words anymore. She could only hear her silence. After the speeches, after the dance floor filled with curated laughter and champagne-fueled clinks, Catherine stepped out for air. She wandered to the side lawn where a row of string lights swayed gently in the wind. There, at the edge of the vineyard, stood Sophia. Facing away. Shoulders square. Back perfectly straight. Catherine approached, hesitating as her heels crunched over the gravel. "Sweetheart," she said softly. Sophia turned slowly. Her eyes were dry, but there was a finality in them that Catherine had never seen before. "I didn't know," Catherine began. "I didn't think they would." "You didn't stop it," Sophia said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was worse, tired. "You saw it. You heard him. And you did nothing." Catherine opened her mouth to speak but couldn't find the words. Sophia continued, "All my life, I've been told I'm strong. That I can handle things. That I don't need comfort, or attention, or space. But you know what I needed today? A mother who would stand up for me." "I didn't want to ruin Caleb's big day," Catherine whispered. Sophia let out a short, humorless laugh. "His day was built on me. My money. My silence. My support. And I got a paper plate." There was the truth. Not shouted, not flung in rage, just placed in front of Catherine like the meal Sophia never got to enjoy. Catherine reached for her daughter's hand, but Sophia stepped back gently. "I'm done playing the part of the helper. The safety net." Catherine's throat tightened. "So what now?" "I go home," Sophia said. "And you can decide if you want to be a mother to a whole person, or just to the pieces that are easy." With that, she turned and walked toward the parking lot, her heels quiet on the gravel, her dignity louder than the band still playing under the lights. Catherine stood there for a long time, watching the shadows shift over the vineyard. She had spent years hoping her children would grow into independent, successful people. And now that Sophia had, she realized with sharp pain that she had confused independence with invulnerability. She had failed to notice when her daughter needed defending, because she had always assumed she could defend herself. But what she missed, what she finally understood standing alone in the moonlight, was that even the strongest among us need to be chosen, need to be protected, need to be seen. And on the day of the wedding, Catherine had chosen peace over justice, appearance over action. And in doing so, she had chosen everyone else but her daughter. She didn't go back inside. She didn't finish the dinner. She didn't pose for any more photos. She sat in her car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, and cried quietly into her palms. This was the mistake she wouldn't be able to decorate over. This was the silence that would echo louder than any toast ever made. The days after the wedding unfolded in a strange kind of silence, too quiet, too polite, as if the air itself were trying to avoid confrontation. Catherine Bennett had returned home feeling hollow. The joy she thought she would carry after Caleb's wedding never arrived. Instead, there was a tightness in her chest, a sense that something sacred had been broken, not loudly but in slow, irreparable cracks. She hadn't spoken to Sophia since that night. She didn't even know where to begin. The text from Caleb came 3 days later. "Hey, do you know why Sophia pulled the Venmo? The vendors are blowing up my phone. I thought she was handling that part." Catherine stared at the screen. Pulled the Venmo? She opened her own app. The $8,200 Sophia had sent weeks earlier, money that was intended to cover the rehearsal dinner, bar service, and gratuity, was gone. Not a trace. Not even a note. That was unlike Sophia. She was methodical, professional. She always left records, receipts, explanations. But this time, she had said nothing. Only silence. And an empty balance. Catherine called Sophia immediately. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. On the third try, it didn't even ring. Blocked? Or just ignored? Catherine wasn't sure which one hurt more. Later that night, Catherine stood in her kitchen holding a mug she never drank from anymore. It was chipped at the handle, printed with "Best Mom Ever" in faded pink letters. A gift from Sophia when she was 17, 2 weeks after the divorce. She had forgotten all about it until now. But there it was, tucked behind the wine glasses like some quiet relic. Back then, Sophia had still tried. Still believed in mending. And now, Catherine realized, maybe she had taken that belief and used it, over and over, until there was nothing left of it but obligation. 2 days passed. Then 5. Then a week. Catherine finally swallowed her pride and drove to Sophia's apartment building. She didn't text. She didn't call. She just showed up. When Sophia opened the door, she didn't look surprised. Just tired. "Hi, Mom." "Hi," Catherine said. "Can I come in?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. The apartment was clean, minimal, books stacked by theme, soft jazz humming low from a Bluetooth speaker. A pot of tea simmered gently on the stove. Catherine stood awkwardly, feeling like a stranger. Sophia didn't offer her a seat. Instead, she asked, "What's this about?" "I came to talk," Catherine said. "About the wedding." "But Caleb." Sophia crossed her arms. "Of course. He's in a bit of a bind. The vendors are threatening legal action. Amelia's father is furious. They need help closing the gap, about $10,000. Sophia didn't blink. "And you're asking me?" "Yes. I mean, you always said." "I know what I always said," Sophia cut in, her voice calm but firm. "That's the problem." Catherine felt her throat tighten. "I thought we were a family," she said, a little smaller now. Sophia looked away. "We are. But you've confused me being reliable with being responsible for everyone's chaos." Silence hung in the room like a third person. Sophia exhaled and walked to the window. "I gave Caleb everything I could afford," she said. "Not just money. Sacrifice. Even my place at that wedding. And no one blinked when I was humiliated in front of 200 people. Not him. Not you." Catherine's voice cracked. "I didn't know what to do." "You didn't try," Sophia said. "You stayed quiet to keep the peace. And in doing so, you made your choice." Catherine dropped her gaze. "I came to ask for help," she whispered. "And I'm saying no," Sophia replied. "Not because I don't love you, but because I finally love myself enough to stop." Tears burned behind Catherine's eyes. "I don't know who you are anymore," she said, trembling. Sophia smiled, softly, almost sadly. "That's because you never asked." That line was a knife. Catherine thought back to every holiday call, every casual lunch, every time she had defaulted to Sophia for logistics, for money, for mediation. She had never asked about her life, her dreams, her pain. She had never asked why Sophia never took that art class she once talked about, or if she was happy, or if she was tired. She had just assumed, if Sophia was functioning, then Sophia was fine. But now, watching her daughter stand tall, assertive, drawing a line that should have been drawn years ago, Catherine saw something new. Sophia wasn't angry. She was free. And Catherine was grieving. "I'm not trying to punish you," Sophia said more gently now. I just need space. Not for revenge. For recovery. Catherine wiped her face and nodded. I'm sorry, she said, voice raw. I should have defended you. At the wedding. Long before that. Sophia didn't respond right away. She just looked at her mother with an unreadable expression. Then she said, Thank you for saying that. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But a start. As Catherine left the apartment, the air outside felt different, sharper, somehow, colder, but also honest. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't pretending everything was okay. And that felt like the first step toward becoming the mother her daughter deserved. Catherine Bennett sat at her kitchen table one quiet morning, staring at a ceramic mug she hadn't touched in over a decade. Best mom ever, it read, faded pink letters scratched by time and dishwasher heat. Sophia had given it to her when she was 17, her senior year of high school. It had been wrapped in yellow tissue paper with a note tucked inside. For the one who holds everything together. At the time, Catherine had smiled, kissed her daughter's forehead, and set the mug proudly beside the sink. What she hadn't noticed, what she hadn't even thought to ask was, who was holding Sophia together? The confrontation at Sophia's apartment still echoed in her head. Not because Sophia yelled, she hadn't. Not once. But because she said something Catherine had never expected, I finally love myself enough to stop. Catherine had gone home that night and sat in the dark, the only light coming from a string of soft glow bulbs she'd hung last Christmas and never taken down. She played the conversation over and over again, searching for a loophole, a justification, a way to make it make sense. But it did make sense. That was the terrifying part. For decades, Catherine had been playing a role, the mother who kept peace, kept order, kept everyone afloat. She thought that meant delegating. Letting Sophia help. Trusting that the strong one would never need rescuing. She didn't see it for what it was. A slow and invisible form of abandonment. 2 days later, she visited Monica, Sophia's old childhood friend. They hadn't spoken in years, but Catherine remembered Monica as the girl who stayed over during sleepovers, who had once braided Sophia's hair before graduation, who used to call her Mrs. B and eat all her shortbread cookies. Monica greeted her with cautious warmth. I'm not sure what you're looking for, Monica said as they sat with tea in her small home office. I just want to understand my daughter, Catherine replied. Monica took a breath, set her cup down, and said something Catherine would never forget. She was always strong. But strength isn't the absence of pain, it's just what you do with it. That night, Catherine opened Sophia's baby album for the first time in years. Page after page, a girl with serious eyes, too aware for her age. In every photo with Caleb, she was leaning toward him, adjusting his collar, tying his shoe, wiping his cheek. Sister, yes, but also a second mother. And that had been the arrangement. Quite undiscussed. Unfair. Catherine remembered a memory so clear it hurt. Sophia was 14. Caleb had the flu. Catherine was working a double shift at the hospital and didn't get home until 2 a.m. She found Sophia asleep beside Caleb's bed, a half-finished bowl of soup on the nightstand, and her algebra homework untouched. Catherine had kissed her forehead and whispered, "Thank you." But she never said, "You shouldn't have had to." Now, as the truth settled into her bones, Catherine didn't feel guilt. She felt grief. Not just for what she had missed, but for what Sophia had lost in silence. The next afternoon, Catherine stood outside Sophia's apartment once more. She didn't come with an ask this time. She came with an offering. In a small gift bag was the best mom ever mug, freshly cleaned and carefully wrapped. And a letter. One she had rewritten 6 times. Sophia opened the door, surprised to see her again. "I'm not here to ask you for anything," Catherine said softly. "I just wanted to give you this." Sophia took the bag without speaking. Her eyes lingered on the edge of the wrapping paper. "I wrote something," Catherine continued. "You don't have to read it now. Forever. But it's yours." Sophia nodded, her expression unreadable. "I'll walk away now," Catherine said. "But I want you to know, I see it now. All of it. And I'm sorry." That evening, Sophia did open the letter. Alone, with the lamp casting long shadows across her quiet living room. The handwriting was familiar, a little shaky. Dear Sophia, I spent most of my life believing you didn't need me the way Caleb did. I thought strength meant you had no breaking point. I see now that I was wrong, not just once, but again and again. I let you carry too much. I let your silence speak for me. I told myself you were fine because it was easier than asking if you weren't. You gave more than I ever thanked you for. More than I ever had the courage to notice. I will not ask you to forgive me. That's your choice. But I will ask this, let me try to be your mother now. Not the one who watches, but the one who listens. And if all you want from me is space, then I will give that to you. Willingly. Because love, real love, honors boundaries. With all my heart. For the first time in a long time, Sophia cried. Not because she was hurt, but because someone finally saw that she had been. The next week, they met at a small cafe between their homes. No expectations. No lists. No favors. Just two women, seated across from one another, sharing quiet sips of coffee and stories about their day. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a beginning. Catherine finally understood something profound. Her role wasn't to fix Sophia. Her role was to finally show up. And in doing so, she gave her daughter what she should have given all along. Not money, not praise, not responsibility, but permission to be just a daughter. The first few weeks after Catherine handed Sophia the letter were filled with silence. Not the wounded, punishing kind, but a sacred silence, like the pause between thunder and rain. The kind that comes not from fear, but from space. And space, Catherine was learning, could be its own form of love. She didn't press. She didn't call every day. She didn't try to fix things. Instead, she waited. And in that quiet waiting, something extraordinary began to happen. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the slow, steady beat of real transformation. One Wednesday morning, as Catherine was cleaning out the garage, she found an old plastic tub labeled Sophia, college stuff. Inside were faded notebooks, a broken desk lamp, and a course catalog from a master's program Sophia had once dreamed of applying to. Back then, Sophia had talked about becoming a behavioral economist. She was fascinated with why people made irrational choices, especially within families. Catherine remembered brushing it off at the time. You've got a great job already, sweetheart. Grad school's expensive and stressful. And Sophia had let it go, the way she let most things go. But now, tucked into the last folder, was a handwritten checklist titled, Someday when it's my turn. Travel to Europe. Learn French. Finish my master's. Say no and mean it. Be someone's first choice. Catherine folded the paper gently and set it aside, her throat tight. She knew, without needing to ask, that Sophia had started checking the boxes. Indeed, across town, Sophia had just submitted her application to the very master's program she'd abandoned a decade earlier. The personal statement was raw and real, about resilience, about boundaries, about how sometimes the hardest economic lesson comes not from a textbook, but from learning how to not be the fallback plan in your own family. She was also dating again, casually, cautiously. Not to fill a void, but to enjoy her own company in the presence of another. She was building a life that wasn't defined by service, but by choice. Caleb, too, had started to unravel from the web of privilege and avoidance that had shielded him for so long. When Amelia finally left him, after her father's business took a hit and the facade of luxury began to crack, he found himself standing in a small two-bedroom rental with no job, no savings, and no excuses. The first time he called Sophia, he didn't ask for money. He asked for advice. I want to make things right, he said. Not with my wallet. With my actions. Sophia listened, not with her heart wide open, but with caution and clarity. You're not broken, Caleb, she said. But you are unfinished. Do the work. He did. He got a part-time job at the logistics firm. Sold the luxury car. Canceled the country club membership. Attended therapy. Started cooking for himself. Burned rice twice but got the hang of it. He even reached out to his old mentors, not for favors, but to learn. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. And for the first time, trying meant something. Back at Catherine's home, the changes were smaller, but no less powerful. She stopped using guilt as a bridge to conversation. Stopped saying things like, "I'm just a mom, what do I know?" Stopped assuming that silence meant forgiveness. She started asking real questions. How's your class going? What do you need from me today? Do you want advice, or just someone to listen? Sophia didn't always answer right away. But the effort built something new between them, trust without strings. 3 months after the wedding, they met again at the same cafe. No agenda. No hidden emotion. Just coffee and company. Sophia wore a soft green scarf Catherine hadn't seen before. Her face looked relaxed, not guarded, not tense, just calm. Caleb arrived halfway through. He carried a box of pastries from the local bakery, the one they all used to visit on Sunday mornings before things got complicated. They sat as equals. No one was saving anyone. No one was apologizing for simply existing. At one point, Catherine asked, "So, what's next for you?" Sophia smiled, stirring her tea. "I'm learning how to be a whole person," she said. "Not a role. Not a support beam. Just me." Catherine nodded, eyes glistening. "I think I'm learning that too." That afternoon, as they walked to their cars, Catherine hesitated and then turned to her daughter. "I used to think parenting meant doing everything. Fixing, smoothing, giving, solving." Sophia raised an eyebrow, curious. "But I think," Catherine said, voice steady, "real parenting sometimes means stepping back. Letting go. Trusting the people you raise to live their own lives." Sophia's eyes softened. "That's the bravest thing you've ever said to me." Catherine smiled. "It's the hardest lesson I've learned. But I'm grateful you taught it." And just like that, they parted ways, not with the weight of history on their backs, but with the lightness of mutual recognition. No longer mother and martyr. Just mother and daughter. Human and human. Learning, forgiving, rebuilding, together. The late afternoon sun cast long amber streaks through the window of a quiet coffee shop tucked into the edge of downtown Portland. The kind of place where the baristas knew your name, and the sound of steam rising from the espresso machine mixed seamlessly with acoustic guitar playing softly from a speaker overhead. Sophia arrived early. It was something she always did, arrive early, sit facing the door, prepare emotionally for whatever came next. Old habits, perhaps, from a life lived in constant readiness. But this time felt different. This time, she wasn't there to fix anything, or explain herself, or rescue anyone. She was simply here, as herself. She'd chosen a corner table. 2 mugs sat between them already, hers a deep roast with oat milk, the other black, for him. She remembered how Caleb always took his coffee bitter and hot, like he was trying to prove he could handle it. At 3:04 he walked in. He looked older. Not aged, but grown. His hair was a little longer, shirt sleeves rolled casually at the elbows. Gone was the tailored suit, the Rolex, the overgroomed persona of a man trying too hard to impress a world that never truly accepted him. This was just Caleb. And for the first time in years, that was enough. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Hey," she replied, offering a small smile. He noticed the coffee and smirked. "Still remember how I like it?" "I tried to forget," she teased gently. "Didn't take." They both laughed. It was light. Unscripted. A laugh not shaped by duty or deflection, but from a shared moment, a shared history. For a while they talked about neutral things. The weather. A new coffee shop down the block. The new book Sophia was reading. Caleb's weekend volunteering gig at the food bank. Then, after a pause, came the pivot. "I've been seeing a therapist," Caleb said quietly. Sophia looked up, surprised. "Yeah." He nodded. "Twice a week. At first, I hated it. I thought I was just going to explain how everyone had messed me up. But it turns out, I did a lot of that myself." Sophia sipped her coffee and waited. "I let Amelia's world swallow me," he continued. "And I used you as my life raft. I never realized how unfair that was." Sophia didn't respond right away. Instead, she let the words hang in the air, like fresh laundry on a still day. I guess we both inherited survival tactics, she said finally. You clung to people. I carried them. Caleb exhaled, and it almost sounded like relief. I miss being your brother, he said softly. Not your dependent. Not your burden. Just your brother. Sophia studied him for a moment. I miss that too, she said. But I think we have to rebuild it on even ground. Agreed. They clinked their coffee mugs together in silent toast. Meanwhile, across town, Catherine stood in her backyard garden, pruning roses. The silence of the afternoon was broken only by birdsong and the hum of a distant lawnmower. She didn't know what was happening at the cafe. But she didn't need to. She had made peace with not being present for everything. Some reconciliations were sacred. And this one, between her children, needed to happen without her shadow lingering overhead. She had spent years placing Sophia on a pedestal of reliability, Caleb on a pedestal of fragility, and herself in the martyr's seat, watching it all unfold from behind the veil of doing her best. Now she was doing better. And sometimes, better meant stepping aside. Back at the cafe, Caleb leaned forward, elbows on the table. Do you think we can ever go back? He asked. Sophia shook her head. I don't want to go back, she said. I want to go forward. But without the old contracts. Contracts? You know, she explained. The silent agreements. That I'll always pay. That you'll always take. That Mom will pretend it's normal. Caleb gave a slow nod. Then let's write new ones, he said. Out loud this time. Sophia raised an eyebrow, amused. You want to make it official? Why not? He reached into his pocket, pulled out a wrinkled napkin, and grabbed a pen from the table. In this contract, he said dramatically, we agree to no longer weaponize guilt, expectation, or manipulation. Sophia grinned. And to talk like adults, even when it's hard. To offer help but never demand it. To love without debt. To be siblings, she said, not systems. They both signed at the bottom. Caleb even drew a tiny coffee cup as a notary seal. They laughed again, longer this time. Not because everything was fixed, but because they were finally free to feel joy without shame. As they left the cafe, the sun was beginning to dip behind the skyline. Caleb walked Sophia to her car, and just before she got in, he stopped. One last thing, he said. Sophia turned. I'm proud of you, he said, his voice catching a little. I didn't say it enough. Maybe never. But I am. Sophia held his gaze. I'm proud of you too, Caleb. Not because you've changed, but because you chose to. They hugged, not tight, not desperate, but real. Then they let go. Later that evening, Catherine's phone buzzed with a text. From Sophia. Had coffee with Caleb. It was good. What? Really okay. Catherine stared at the screen, heart full, hands trembling. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she sat back in her chair, closed her eyes, and let the tears fall, quiet, grateful ones. Because she finally understood something no parenting book had ever taught her. Healing doesn't mean returning to what was. It means building something better, with truth, choice, and mutual respect. That night, for the first time in years, all three of them slept without feeling like someone owed something to someone. They were no longer tethered by guilt. They were connected by understanding. And in that quiet evolution, they became a real family. Not perfect, but free. Catherine Bennett had always believed love was action. It was packing lunches, driving carpools, paying bills. It was fixing the broken things before they cracked too wide to hold. She thought parenting meant holding everything together, being strong for her children, absorbing the chaos so they could have peace. But standing in her garden that fall afternoon, hands deep in the soil, Catherine realized something that stopped her breath cold. For years, she had confused control for care. And in doing so, she had lost the one thing she never meant to lose, her daughter's trust. She remembered a moment long ago. Sophia was 11. Caleb barely 2. Sophia had made pancakes for breakfast, setting the table with mismatched plates and a note that said, "Happy early Mother's Day. I made everything by myself." Catherine had been touched. She smiled, ruffled Sophia's hair, and said, "Next time, maybe ask first. You used up all the eggs." She hadn't meant to sound critical. She was just thinking about groceries. But she would never forget how Sophia's face shifted, just slightly, like something tender had curled back inside itself. Sophia never made breakfast again. Now, all these years later, Catherine finally understood what she had done. She'd been present, but not connected. Loving, but not listening. Supportive, but only on her terms. And when her children needed something she didn't expect, a boundary, a confrontation, a no wrapped in pain, she had called it rebellion. When really it was a plea. After the wedding disaster, after Sophia's firm refusal, after Caleb's unraveling and rebuilding, Catherine began to change. Not dramatically, not performatively, but quietly. She read. She journaled. She sat with uncomfortable truths instead of running from them. She had once believed being a mother meant never admitting you were wrong. Now, she believed the opposite. In a parenting group she joined online, someone posted a quote that struck her like thunder. "Your child is not your second chance. They are their own first." Catherine read it again. And again. And then, for the first time in years, she wrote a letter not to her children, but to herself. "Dear Catherine, you tried. But trying is not the same as understanding. You were brave, but sometimes brave looks like letting go, not holding tighter. You've carried guilt like armor. It's time to put it down. You are still a mother. But now you are also a student. And that is a gift. Keep going. Yourself." One evening, Sophia invited her over for dinner. No agenda. No crisis. Just soup and sourdough and a quiet seat at the table. Catherine brought wine. Not as a bribe, not as a peace offering. Just as something she thought Sophia might enjoy. They talked about small things. Work, traffic, a terrible movie they both secretly liked. Then, in a lull between courses, Sophia asked, "Did you ever regret not pushing me harder toward grad school?" Catherine paused. "I regret assuming you didn't need me," she said. "But I don't regret that you found your own way." Sophia looked surprised. Then relieved. "That means a lot," she said. "Thank you." And in that moment, Catherine saw it. Not the teenager who held the family together, or the adult who finally broke under the weight of silent duty, but a whole person, unfolding on her own terms. Not because of Catherine, but despite her. That night, Catherine walked home slowly. She passed a mother tugging a stroller up a steep sidewalk, a little girl skipping behind her with a plastic crown. She heard the mother say sharply, "Come on, stop dawdling. We're late." The girl's face fell. And Catherine wanted to stop them both, kneel down and say, "You don't know it yet, but this moment matters." She didn't. But she hoped one day that mother would figure it out too. Because what Catherine had learned, finally, fully, was this. Love is not loud. It's not the lecture, the life plan, the legacy. It's presence. It's listening. It's letting people surprise you, even your children. Especially your children. Family is not a debt to be repaid. It is a choice to be honored. Not because of blood, but because of how we show up when it matters. And sometimes, the most loving thing a parent can say is not, "Yes." It's not, "I'll fix it." This, "I hear you. I see you. I'm willing to change." Sophia once believed her worth was tied to what she gave. Now she knew better. And Catherine, well, she once thought being a good mother meant never needing to be forgiven. Now, she sat across from her daughter, no longer ashamed to say, "I was wrong, but I am learning." And that, perhaps, was the most powerful lesson of all.